The 2023 NFL Draft is just around the corner,
That's
which
right.
means so are your 2023 Dynasty rookie drafts. We are going to give you some sleeper wide receivers. Now, some of these you might have heard of, some of them you might have not heard of, but our goal is to kind of give you more confidence in some of these guys who are likely not going to be first round selections and tell you why we like them and the upside that we see in those players.
Right.
We're really passionate about these guys. So do us a favor, drop a like, subscribe if you like Dynasty football content, and comment down below your wide receiver sleeper in the 2023 NFL draft class. 2 players each. I'll go first with my first sleeper pick. Let's talk about Xavier Hutchinson. X gon' give it to ya. 3-star recruit out of Jacksonville, Florida. Now, background story on him, he spent a couple years at JUCO, which is why he's going to be a late declare. He will be 23 years old in his first rookie season, currently 22 years old. But transferred from junior college to Iowa State, where he's been absolutely dominant ever since. He holds the Iowa State single season record for receptions. He's currently projected to go in the 4th round.
Right.
However, I think he is someone who could slip into the 3rd round. I would say early 3rd round is a realistic possibility for a guy like Xavier Hutchinson. If not, 2nd round. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but think about guys like Alec Pierce, who rose last year.
Yeah.
Somehow Tyquan Thornton was a 2nd round pick. We had Sky Moore, who was in a similar position, who rose from being a 4th round pick all the way to being a 2nd round pick. I think we could see, at least for me, he is one of my biggest pre-draft risers this year that I imagine once NFL scouts get their eyes on his film, as if they haven't already, but once the hype kind of starts to get there, I think we'll start to see him rise within the draft analyst community and probably within the NFL draft community as a whole. I posted a top 10 wide receivers video on our channel about a month ago, and his projected value has already risen a full round since that time. So I think it's definitely possible that that could continue to happen. I'm a big fan of his traits. Again, like I said, we'll be older coming out. I'll tell you about some of my pro comps where I can kind of see a pathway for him to be fantasy relevant. But according to PFF, he was their 4th rated wide receiver this year. That's out of 199 wide receivers who had a minimum of 55 targets. He was also the 4th graded, got the 4th rated grade for passing routes. Same thing, out of 199 wide receivers with a minimum of 55 targets. This is a proven offensive feature. He was the offense for this team after Breece Hall left. And in fact, even Breece Hall there, he was garnering quite a bit of attention as well. This year, he had 161 targets, which led college football. He was top 10 in receptions and receiving yards. This is a guy that I believe you can trust with a large amount of targets in your offense, and he's going to return that value, that trust for you. Great route runner. One of my favorite, if not my favorite attributes of his. He has those clean, quick cuts that you want to see, that deceptive movement, the ability to manipulate a defender. In fact, there's a lot of times you pop on Xavier's film and you can see defensive backs unsure of what's going to happen. You can see them just nervous at the break point of his route because they have no idea which direction Xavier Hutchinson is about to head into. Some people have that special ability to lull a defensive back to sleep and then kind of burst into the second half of the route. Xavier Hutchinson is that type of player. He can get separation in so many different ways, and I can easily see that translating into the NFL. If you are a great separator, a great route runner, you can manipulate a defender, you're going to succeed in the NFL. He also has really special hands. And unfortunately, the quarterback play, I'm not going to say it was awful, but I would say it was subpar this year. If you watch Xavier's film, a lot of overthrows, a lot of underthrows, which that sucks for Iowa State's team. But that is awesome to see when we're evaluating his film because there's a lot of special receptions on film. The one-handers, the contort your body over your shoulder, the underthrow, you have to come back and get it. We see a lot of those throws on film. He displays really special body control, great ball tracking skills, shows strong hands in one-on-one scenarios, and to me, I think he's one of those players that can continually grow as a contested catcher, which I'm going to tell you about one of my pro comps here in a second, which I kind of see a similar pathway. Good size at 6'3", 205.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty good size for a an X-body wide receiver in today's modern game. I think the game speed is pretty good. We'll find out what he does at the combine. At minimum, I kind of want a 4.43, 4.45. I don't think he needs to run any faster than that personally with how he operates as a route runner. And he has very good versatility. In 2021, he played 77% out wide. He played 21% in the slot. Then this year, he played 70% out wide and almost 30% in the slot. So you can kind of see they were happy to put him anywhere on the field. He can operate in both roles. And when I look at a pro comp for him, I'm looking at a Terry McLaurin and an Adam Thielen. And you might look at those players and say, well, hold on. Those guys are wide receiver ones on their team at points, right? Adam Thielen, before Justin Jefferson, was the wide receiver one on that team. Let's talk about the route that those players took to get to that point. Terry McLaurin was massively undervalued in his draft. He was a late declare. He was 24 years old as a rookie, and he ended up being a mid-third round pick. What did I say beforehand? I think Xavier Hutchinson can absolutely be a mid-third round pick, if not a mid-second round pick. But Terry McLaurin had good speed. I think his speed is obviously better than Xavier Hutchinson, but I see the similarities in their route running ability and what they can do as a contested catcher. Now, Terry McLaurin grew as a contested catcher. That was one of his cons, actually, oddly enough, from scouting reports, was that he wasn't good as a contested catcher, but he grew in that area. I can see a similar pathway for Xavier Hutchinson, as he kind of grows into the NFL. And then you look at Adam Thielen, an undrafted free agent. Very hard to find a player like Adam Thielen as an undrafted free agent, but late declare as well. He was 24 years old as a rookie. He was a great route runner already, but he developed into a very, very good route runner. And you can see shades, personally, I believe you can see shades of Terry and Adam in Xavier Hutchinson's film when you watch him. So those are my ceiling comps. I would say my floor is a little bit lower, like a Tyler Boyd, Paris Campbell type player. And Paris Campbell, who knows what he could have been if he was able to stay healthy. We have seen special, bursts in special plays from him this season as he has been able to be healthy. I would say it's a breakout year for him as he's a free agent now. But I project Xavier Hutchinson to be a wide receiver 2 on a team that could develop into a real star for a team. He could be a Terry McLaurin, this guy who comes out of nowhere. People aren't talking about him, and he becomes a wide receiver 1 on a team because he just works so hard. He's continually getting better. I mean, already from 2021 film to 2022 film, you see a completely different player from Xavier, a much better route runner. I mean, great, even improved as a contested catcher. So I think we could see this sort of pathway for Xavier Hutchinson. And Terry McLaurin was a 3rd round pick, I believe, in Dynasty rookie drafts. I don't think Xavier will, because I think people are much more into Dynasty now and they find these kind of values.
Right.
But as of right now, I expect him to be a mid to late second. If he gets 2nd round draft capital, he'll be like 201 to 203 in Dynasty rookie draft superflex formats. And I think he can produce from day one. Again, if you're able to route run really well, if you're able to create separation, manipulate defenders, that's going to translate really well into the NFL. So I think year 1, with those abilities, he could become a second option on a team instantly. If you look at a team fit, I am looking at your New York Football Giants.
Talk it up.
How about
I'll take it.
Round 3, pick 90. Now, they could also do this in the 2nd round. I wouldn't be surprised if the Giants went to the 2nd round and did this by the time the draft comes around. But look at what Isaiah Hodgins has done at the back half of this year. Similar body type. I just think Xavier Hutchinson gives you a much larger ceiling, and he's a more complete wide receiver. So give Danny Dimes this complimentary guy who has the upside to turn into a wide receiver 1 on your team. I think he fits the Giants really, really well. And he's a player, if he was 2 years younger and he was at Alabama or Ohio State, he'd be a top 20 pick in the NFL draft. That is what the Giants need right now. They don't have a high pick in the draft. They need to find these gems in the draft like Xavier Hutchinson, like Terry McLaurin was. Other fits, I think he could go to the Bears, the Texans, the Rams, the Patriots. Those are all fits that I think could make a lot of sense. Don't rule out the Rams, guys, for a wide receiver. The Rams just feel like this team that no one's talking about for landing spots. They could be a huge landing spot for receivers, for running backs. Don't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
So Xavier Hutchinson, I'm in love with him, and I want him in every single Dynasty league I have.
Yeah, I love Xavier Hutchinson as well. I mean, he's one of my, I I think if we can both do a combined take, we would probably both
Yeah.
say the similar things about Xavier Hutchinson. He's, if I'm
Yeah.
not mistaken, your wide receiver 5 in this class, my wide receiver 5 in this class. So we both see him very, very similar. So that's good.
Yep.
Good to know. Now it's out. People know that's the sleeper. My first wide receiver sleeper is Parker Washington.
And I love this guy too, so I'm all aboard this.
Yeah, so if you don't know who Parker Washington is, he's out of Penn State, 4-star recruit. He's Josh Dobbs' cousin. I don't know if you know Josh Dobbs. He played for the Tennessee Titans this year. Was hopefully trying to get him into the playoffs, but didn't really work out. But yes, that is Parker Washington. I'll give you a little bit more of his attributes first, and then I kind of talk to you about his pro comps and everything. But look, a crazy, crazy weird size. 5'10", 215 pounds, once again out of Penn State, 20 years old right now. Very, very abnormal for a wide receiver. So he is an ideal slot wide receiver. He has a bigger body, stocky frame, which is so weird, but it is special, okay, in my personal opinion. I think his route tree is definitely somewhat there. I think he can grow there. Digs, slants, comebacks, there's the things that he can definitely improve on. But what he has and what he can be in the slot receiver, I do believe he has all the traits in the route running area. And gaining separation, I think, is not the best, but surprisingly there, right? 5'10", 215 pounds. He does have a weird enough speed to him, right? He has the ability to get those short area bursts and create separation from that wide receiver in the slot. He's not a guy that's gonna be, your out wide guy that's gonna go down the field and do a contested catch, which, mind you, he did play 28% out wide, but 71% in the slot. So he does have the versatility and the ability to be a versatile guy. But he does have also the ability to break tackles and make defenders miss, which is really, really exciting in that scenario. One thing I really like about him is his hands. Out of college, he's tied with 12th right now in contested catch in 2022. Obviously, a minimum of 55 targets. This is according to PFF. That's about 200, maybe 220 wide receivers. 74.1% contested catch rate for Parker Washington. So he has some really good hands. He's going to be reliable in the slot, especially if you're third and short, whatever the case may be. You do a quick slant in the middle. Parker Washington could be that guy for you, right? And the abilities after the catch for him is definitely there. It's not necessarily he shined in and was doing it, but it is there, right? The stats didn't necessarily show, but one thing I would encourage you guys to do is to go and watch Penn State versus Ohio State. I would believe that is his best game, where he was essentially featured for the first time on this team in 2022. He was the main feature. He was the guy that was doing everything possible. He was making acrobatic catches. He was diving for the ball. You were seeing him put his body on the line and saying, this is how much he wants to beat this team, right? Or playing Penn State, playing Ohio State. Anyone that plays Ohio State is a big thing. You go into this game, you want to beat them, right? It's the best team, one of the best teams. Parker Washington has it all. I think he has the ability to be a really, really good slot wide receiver. He has that dog mentality, in my personal opinion, being 5'10", 215 pounds. So he's currently projected to go in the 3rd round. I think that's okay. I think he could definitely sneak in. I'm not necessarily sure if he can sneak into the 2nd round, but I'm not necessarily sure if he is going to be able to have that draft capital, because I don't think he's going to be somebody that has the ability to rise his stock. I don't think he was invited to the Senior Bowl, unfortunately. I thought he was going to, but maybe that's
I don't think he's a senior.
Yeah, I don't think he's a senior either. So anyways, aren't some juniors invited to the Senior Bowl though? Like a handful?
I could be wrong, but I don't think so. But I definitely could be wrong.
I thought there was a handful of juniors at least.
He's a redshirt sophomore coming out.
Right. Okay. So maybe I was mistaken. I was hoping. I kept looking at the Senior Bowl list. I was like, is he going to be there? Is he going to get invited? Anyways, so my pro comp, which has been very, very difficult for the past couple days, I've been trying to find. I've asked the community. I've asked Zach. I've been literally scouring the internet, looking through every single NFL team, trying to think of somebody. And I'll be honest with you, I still don't have anyone. Okay. I asked Zach, and he was like, well, someone said once James Washington, but not really. But at the same time, that's
James Washington's size.
Yes, James Washington's size.
Really well.
But like, you tell me in the comments, please, anyone, say who does Parker Washington remind you of in the NFL? And I can't think of anyone that is 5'10", 215 pounds. Maybe we can compare maybe his attributes and how he could
Yeah.
be as a route runner. And that's kind of the thought process. The first person that came to mind was maybe like a taller, stockier Richie James. What's one, like, I'm thinking of my team, the Giants, right? I'm thinking of that. I'm thinking of,
I have heard people compare him to Steve Smith Sr. or Jr.
Okay.
Sorry. The issue with that comp is that he's 20 pounds heavier than Steve Smith was.
Exactly. So
but I've seen that comp. I've seen Sterling Shepard comps, but he's heavier than Sterling Shepard.
Exactly. I saw the Sterling Shepard comp. I didn't want to compare that either. But I mean, if you want to just put names out, heavier than Sterling Shepard, heavier than Richie James, heavier than Steve Smith, right?
Yeah.
But the floor is definitely a James Washington type role, I guess in the body sense, and maybe floor in production. But he's projected to be the wide receiver 2, potentially wide receiver 3, a slot guy. Can he build his role to be a true wide receiver 2? I think he can. Hopefully, if he gets a draft capital, if he goes into the early third, maybe early second, I think a lot of things have to go right for someone like a Parker Washington, unlike someone like an Xavier Hutchinson, who has the body frame and those attributes to be a little bit more, on his side, right? So right now, the way I can see him going is to be a number 2 wide receiver in the slot that actually needs help. So I'm thinking of Rashad Bateman outside of the Ravens. I see him helping the Ravens in the slot, right? I see him going to a team that needs something like that. I've seen Falcons. I've seen the Seahawks to kind of take over that Tyler Lockett role. I've seen the Bears as well, or the Browns. But I really like the Ravens Rashad Bateman on the outside, get a slot guy, kind of what they were trying to utilize Devin Duvernay potentially as, or whatever the case may be, because there were so many injuries. And I think this Ravens team could potentially take a next step in the passing game this year as well. But yes, Parker Washington, a guy, 5'10", once again, 5'10", 215 pounds. He's more built like a running back, but does have the attributes to be a good slot receiver. And he's a dog, in my opinion. I think he can contribute and do something for a team because he has that mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Parker Washington. My favorite attributes definitely would be his hand strength. I mean, there's some ridiculous catches on film for Parker Washington. So those hands are really, really special. All right. There were so many wide receivers I wanted to do here for my second one. It was always going to be Xavier, always. And then my second one, I'll tell you who I wanted to do, but they went back to school. I wanted to do Rome Odunze because I just kind of fell in love with this guy's game.
Right.
But unfortunately, he's going to return back to Washington with Michael Penix Jr. Then I thought about, okay, there's a couple other players I could do here. I definitely could do Zay Flowers. I think he's being massively undervalued. But I just want to do the player that I am the most in love with right now and bring more awareness to him. And I think a lot of people know about this player, but I just want to go ahead and say I agree. I think he's very good and could be a huge value in dynasty drafts. That is Rashee Rice.
Rashee Rice.
3-star recruit from Texas. Had Power 5 offers, but he chose to go to SMU. He had his reasons. And I think, could he have been more successful somewhere else? Maybe, but SMU is a good program. So we've seen successful wide receivers out of SMU. Emmanuel Sanders comes to mind, a couple others. Currently projected to be a second-round pick, and I think that's going to hold up. I don't see him being some sort of riser into the first round. This feels pretty accurate to me. Kind of where the Alec Pierces went, George Pickens, Sky Moores, Tyquan Thorntons, Wan'Dale Robinsons of last year. I think that's where you're going to see him in the second round. The NFL likes this player, and that's always comforting to see. He will be at the Senior Bowl. So we'll get to see him kind of shine. I believe both he and Xavier
are the senior. Yeah, I did look it up earlier because I wanted to see. But yes, he did.
They're at the Senior Bowl.
They did both get invitations.
But I'm a big fan of his. 4 main things that I like about Rashee Rice in particular: the size, 6'3", 206, plays with a ton of strength. I mean, this dude is violent in the open field. Good versatility. He kind of broke out as a junior where he played 90% in the slot. Then in his senior season, he had an even bigger breakout, put himself on the main stage, and he played 82.5% out wide. That's kind of ridiculous to think about that kind of versatility, that you can operate really well when you're playing 90% in the slot and then the next season 82.5% out wide. There is clearly a lot of versatility here. And even in the way that they used him, they put him everywhere on the field, just like a weapon. Get the ball in this guy's hands. I'm talking in the slot, out wide, in the backfield, end arounds. You can really line him up anywhere on the field. And I also love his contested catch ability. He displays really good body control in one-on-one scenarios, can track the ball really well, knows exactly when to jump versus a defensive back in one-on-one scenarios to put himself in the best position to come down with it, is really good at fighting off defenders who are trying to be physical with him at the line of scrimmage, which there are some wide receivers we like in this class. They don't have that ability. They don't have that strength to kind of fight off a defender who wants to be physical, a defensive back who wants to be physical with them on a route. Rashee Rice has that kind of physicality. He's also a very good after the catch player. I could see him being one of the next yak guys in the NFL. I mean, he is a violent open runner, pretty good speed, relatively good IQ in the open field. So I can kind of imagine a Chris Godwin, Brandon Ayuk type of player here. Those are my two ceiling comps for Rashee Rice. Now, keep in mind, Chris Godwin, he was a third round pick. Like, we view him right now as like a very good receiver in the NFL. At one time, maybe a couple years ago, some people would say top 10 even, but he wasn't drafted as some sort of first round pick, some sort of, even early second. He was a third round pick, but he's a great navigator after the catch in the open field, always finds a way to extend a play. I see that in Rashee Rice's game. And then you look at Brandon Ayuk, late first round pick. I think Rashee Rice is probably in that early second category. But Brandon Ayuk is like another one of those elite, very good wide receiver twos on your team that on any given Sunday can be the one. He can carry the receiving game if you want, and also is absolutely exceptional after the catch. Think about how many end arounds Brandon Ayuk gets on a yearly basis. You could do the same thing with a guy like Rashee Rice. He has that speed. He has that open field awareness to get you yards if you're using him as a running back as well, or just as a rusher, if you will. I found a floor that I actually really love as well. How about, and take a journey back with me, Washington great, Indy great, Pierre Garçon.
Pierre Garçon.
Big fan of Pierre Garçon's game. I see a little bit of similarities as far as them being like a versatile weapon, contested catcher. And that's what I project him to be, a versatile wide receiver weapon you can line up all over the field, who has real star upside. He probably goes early second round in rookie mocks, 201. I'm thinking right around the 201 to the 203 is where it feels kind of comfortable. But there are mocks that we're in currently where he falls to the 206, the 207, and it feels like an absolute steal for you to get him. Now, I'm a little bit concerned as far as when exactly he will be able to contribute to fantasy football. This is where I get a little bit caught up because there is a pretty bad history of drops. There is a little bit of a drop issue. This year he had a 9.4% drop rate, which is not good. That's a little bit ugly. But to be fair, again, wide receivers who have a minimum of 55 targets in college football this year, that's not anywhere in like the top 80 as far as like being like worst, 80 worst, right? So it's not like it's awful, but as a prospect, you want your prospect not really to be anywhere. You want him more in that like 5-6 range, ideally, right? Even lower if you can. So he might not be instant day one starter. He might need a half a year or so to really get his bearings in the NFL. Mm-hmm. But I think there will be a moment where you're in redraft season and then there's a game where Rashee Rice, he just pops off for 2 touchdowns and like 100 yards. And everyone's waiver wire pickup that week is Rashee Rice. And in the Dynasty, if you've drafted him, you're like, okay, this could be it. This could be the time. So if we're looking at team fits, I've seen this on mock drafts, and I actually love this landing spot. Other people don't. I love it. How about the New England Patriots, round 2, pick 47? The Patriots don't have a single player on their roster like Rashee Rice. There is no one who, I mean, they have good defined role players, but there is no one with the ridiculous upside and physicality after the catch like Rashee Rice has. I think he absolutely could thrive there, and he would become extremely necessary from day one. Who is Mac Jones throwing the ball to? No disrespect to Jacoby Myers. Tyquan Thornton, the verdict is still out. Jonnu Smith has disappeared. He's a hologram. I mean, at this point, they need an impact player like this. You don't have Tom Brady anymore. You can't just find values in free agency. You need an impact player for Mac Jones to really show what he can be. Other fits, I like the Panthers, Bears, Rams, Saints. I think the Saints, I imagine that being a really cool combination of Chris Olave and Rashee Rice. Michael Thomas likely moving on. Jarvis Landry, obviously not the same player anymore. So Rice could instantly serve as the wide receiver 2 there in New Orleans. And then you put Rashid Shaheed kind of as that burner Y, if you will, if you wanted to do that. But yeah, I'm a big fan of Rashee Rice's game. I'm excited to see where he goes in the NFL draft. And it will be interesting to see if he rises or if he stays, because I feel like he's kind of like this is the max he'll go, second round. I don't imagine him getting into the first round of NFL drafts.
Yeah. It's exciting. I like Rashid Rice as well, another guy. I think we do have a lot of similar guys. Rashid is definitely a guy that's up there, has opportunity to potentially be something. Yeah. All right, I'll get through my guy a little bit quicker, have a little bit less time. Okay. My wide receiver 2 is Marvin Mims. Okay. If you don't know who Marvin Mims is a guy out of Oklahoma, 5'11", 184 pounds. Not the biggest guy. He's definitely more of a slot wide receiver, 4-star recruit. Went to Long Star High School. If I'm not mistaken, he is the brother of Denzel Mims. I did look this up. I've been trying to find official stuff saying the Mims brothers, but everything that I've read saying that he is brothers to Denzel Mims. So, hey, that's good. He's kind of got some family in the NFL, kind of understands the league, and, kind of helps him with that thought process moving forward.
Sure.
Give you some of my traits, some things that I like about him, maybe some things he can improve on, maybe some dislikes. Great ideal size for a slot wide receiver. Once again, 5'11", 184 pounds. Yes, 184 pounds for him. Decent speed for a guy of that size. Great twitch, great burst coming off the line of scrimmage on short areas. I really like. I do believe he has a decent route tree. He can gain separation in the middle of the field. And he always seems to be 1 or 2 steps ahead of the defender, which is really, really great. I only see him really do slants and digs and that kind of streak. So I think he can improve in the area, but he's a slot receiver, so I don't think he's going to be doing much more than that, in my personal opinion. Once again, very, very versatile guy that can make you twitch, make twitchy moves, make you miss in space. He can track the ball down. He can adjust his body. He kind of has to do those things. He doesn't have the long arm wingspan, for a 5'10" guy, 180 something pounds. He played in the slot for 30% of the time, and then out wide for 68% of the time. So he kind of can play both, but I would rather see him play in the slot. I wish those numbers were reversed in this college year because it just wasn't up there. The hands, a little bit of a problem. Not the best drop rate, kind of like what Zach was saying. Rashid had 9-point-something%. Marvin Mims has 8.5% drop rate, which is not the best. So he definitely is up there, but he's not the worst either.
Sure.
Okay. Production wasn't the best as well. I mean, he kind of was the wide receiver too. He wasn't the guy that was there, but the yak was great because he was getting those deep balls, those Hail Mary passes from his quarterback at the time, Spencer Rattler, Dylan Gabriel. He played a little bit with Caleb Williams. So there's definitely some opportunity for Marvin Mims to kind of step up. He's currently projected to go in the 3rd round, which I feel comfortable. I don't see him really raising his draft capital there personally. I don't see him going in the 2nd round. I think 3rd round feels really comfortable in my personal opinion. If he does, hey, that's good. Maybe he has a good combine. Maybe his speed is up there. Maybe he runs in the, high 4 or low 4.4s somehow. Maybe he can kind of raise his draft capital, right? So players that I kind of saw comps for that I really like, I think he kind of reminds me of a Hunter Renfrow personally. I think he can be a guy that can contribute in that way. Maybe not exact body frame, but I'm thinking more of the production, more of like maybe where he could potentially be, and that's the ceiling, right? Floor more of like Isaiah McKenzie, a guy that's not going to necessarily be more of a role player. So Hunter Renfrow, Darnell Mooney, he's projected to be a wide receiver 2 or wide receiver 3, more of like a slot guy once again. Can he be a fantasy relevant? I'm kind of thinking of like Rashid Rice, kind of like what Zach said. He may not be a guy that's going to come in and beat somebody, but you might have to pick him off waiver wires because he's getting more opportunity. Maybe the starting slot receiver that maybe he gets drafted to, in my scenario, which I believe could be a great fit, is the Seattle Seahawks with Tyler Lockett, right? Tyler Lockett hypothetically gets hurt. Marvin steps up. He has to, right? Tyler Lockett has been out for 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain. I think he can kind of step in and say, hey, Marvin's a guy. He may not be a guy that's going to get the same amount of targets that Tyler Lockett was getting, but maybe he can start off with 4-5 targets per game and kind of work his way up. And maybe in the second year, they can kind of say, okay, Tyler Lockett, we're getting older. Marvin Mims kind of steps up, and there he gets more familiar with this role. Other team fits I see him kind of going to, once again, more of a slot wide receiver. I like the Texans. The Titans, excuse me. You know, Treylon Burks on the outside. You need a slot receiver there. You have Kyle Phillips on the opposite side of him. Do you go to the Colts with, Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman, and then him in the slot? Once again, more of a third wide receiver guy, a guy that can kind of help your offense. I also see a similar scenario with the Ravens, kind of like I saw with Parker Washington, and the Chiefs. Honestly, I like the Chiefs. I know you get Sky Moore, but maybe he probably wasn't the guy. Or what it took Tony. What's going to happen with Tony? What's going to happen with Juju? Can they be a more slot guy? But there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen with Marvin Mims. But I like him as a slot receiver. I think he can definitely raise his draft capital in the combine. But I think he's going to be a late round guy that maybe is going to be in the middle of the pick. Maybe late second potentially, and say, okay, we can see him getting some workload in this offense. So not somebody I don't think the community necessarily loves, but I like what I saw on film personally.
Yeah. Well, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with Marvin Mims. It will be very interesting.
Marvin Mims.
All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Comment down below your sleeper wide receiver this year. Drop a like, subscribe if you like Dynasty content, and we'll see you in the next video.
Yo, what's good? Thanks for watching. We got a lot more videos.
A lot more.
If you want more videos,
watch it.
You can also subscribe
right now
if you want to.
You need to.
And lastly, don't forget that you can sign up to support the show and get exclusive content by going to patreon.com/FantasyLandFam.